Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
The Pan-African Pyramid. My name is Andrew Irumba Katusabe, your speaker, and now I'm privileged to meet Comrade Arali Kasagama. Arali Kasagama is Africa culture diplomat and custodian of the Messianic Mission. He's also the chairman of Africa Royal Heritage Museum based in Fort Porto. Arali, nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you, Mr. Comrade Andrew.
Hey, you see in the Pan-African we call ourselves comrade.
Ndugu.
Ndugu. Ndugu Rugunda. Ndugu Arali, Comrade Arali. Yes. Now, Arali, last time we met, we talked a number of issues about Somalians own. Today I want us to talk about something different.
Yes.
Let's talk about federation and confederation as a mechanism for reunification of Africa. We are saying reunification of Africa because we also know and believe and have evidence that Africa was once one. It was divided, and now we live in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda. You can add on 54 countries. So can we use federation and confederation in reuniting the Africa that we were once one? If we can begin by actually maybe trying to explain for our viewers what that would mean. Federation and confederation.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and for having yet another moment to sit and discuss one of the most hottest topics. The topic of the unification of Africa seems to be the most top priority in every country. Most recent, we've been seeing coups, military coups in West Africa, predominantly.
Niger.
Yeah. Mali and Burkina Faso and all these countries. And an attempted coup just in a few weeks in the DRC.
Few weeks ago.
Yes, an attempted coup. But all the leaders who take over power are fronting when they are reading their objectives, their key priorities. And like you had in Senegal, we had an election whereby an opposition leader was able to win and from prison. And this Diomaye Faye, this very young man, what does he say? He says he's striving for the unification of Africa.
Gaddafi died trying to unite Africa. United States of Africa.
Yes.
Africa should have...
United African States.
United States of... Okay, fine.
So...
But Gaddafi actually wanted one single currency for Africa. Gaddafi wanted to abolish the... he wanted to put up the equivalent of World Bank and IMF for Africa. African Bank.
Exactly. So,
and so on and so forth.
So, in other words, I'm trying to show you how sensitive this subject seems to be. Even here in East Africa, all these leaders, even one of the tenets of the national resistance movement, the four main tenets, Pan-Africanism is one of them.
They are singing it, but they are not. I'm not sure that they are living it. Apart from the head,
it is strategically being. It's a journey. The national resistance movement believes
that 8 years later, that journey at least we should be seeing.
Yeah, but for the moment, let's first know that it is one of the tenets of the party which is in government, and it has been in government for all those years.
Okay.
So we understand that this is a very, very hot topic. And so to say that uniting the continent of Africa, the states of Africa, for the people who are both natives and citizens to be progressive in their own land, united, progressive, and harnessing and tapping their resources together is key on agenda. But that takes us to the need. The need seems to be defined by the mechanism that you have introduced, that we are trying to discuss about federation and confederation. But we have to go back and say, what happened? Because the term is reunification. Was Africa one land before? The answer is yes and obvious. And that's why.
Is Africa still
that's
one?
why in Africa there is a specific study in African history for students who have done that, from Marrakesh to Mombasa, Cairo to the Cape.
Marrakesh is where?
In Morocco.
Oh.
Yeah, so students have been able to study about the Berlin
Conference.
Scramble and Partition of Africa, the Berlin Conference, 1884 to 86. That process that put up the
54.
the federal and the federate and confederate states of Africa. They put them on table and started to create boundaries and partition them into the current republics that we have across the continent and a few monarch states. So the full monarchs right now, there are 3, and that is Morocco, Eswatini, and Lesotho. So those remainder 3, they are the full monarchs. So the rest, there is no full monarch, including the great kingdom of Abyssinia in Ethiopia, where you had the great Menelik II defeat the Italians and the British combined. So you can say it is not. So it was be able to put up on table, and it was partitioned into what now currently we have as the 54 republic states. And these 54 republican states, it also introduced a new mechanism of governance, where you have revolutionary leaders, people who decided to pitch guns of the Kalashnikovs and go to the bush. Initially, they started with anti-colonial movements, where they were striving for the independence of these colonial projects. The colonial machine was able to invent the projects. So Uganda is one of them, Tanzania, Kenya. Every country you see in its form of language is a colonial machine project. So the people adopted it, accepted it. Now this introduced a new form of Pan-Africanists that were called nationalists. And these nationalists now started anti-colonial struggles. Now, I like to speak about this because it is this subject, in my years as a Pan-Africanist, 20 plus years as a Pan-Africanist, it's a subject that I've been able to do research for the last more than 15 years. Deeper research. Or even more
I know you're a researcher.
Yeah, deep research. So it's a subject I speak with profound knowledge.
I know you're a researcher.
Having fully understood what it is. So Africa, the natives of Africa are formed in 4 ethnicities.
4 ethnicities?
Absolutely.
Number 1?
The Hamitic people.
The Hamitic people.
These are the people that mostly occupy the places of the eastern part of Africa. The Hamites. Then we have the Luo-Nubians. Luo-Nubians, yes. So these Luo-Nubians occupy most parts of northern Africa and some parts of Central Africa. And then we have Bantu.
The Bantu tribe.
Yes, the Bantu. The Bantu are majorly in West Africa, Southern Africa, and for many in East Africa. They are covered. Actually, Bantu is the majority, seems to be the majority ethnic group.
And finally?
And finally, we have the Nilotics.
Nilotics.
Absolutely. And also these ones are covered so much in also the parts of East Africa here and some parts of Southern Africa. So predominantly, those are the natives of Africa.
Nilotics, Nilo-Hamites.
Yeah, no, where you see a double word means you have an intermarriage, but you have to look at the key word.
The key word.
Yes. So in the key word, the key ethnic, these are the 4 ethnic groups. So these are the 4. Now these groups had federal states. They had states that were monarchs. The 1880 pre-Berlin.
1880 pre-Berlin.
Yeah, the 1880 pre-Berlin states. So what was the political structure? The political structure and the nation formation. The nation formation of Africa in 1880 before the Berlin came. So if you looked at the African map of the 1880, you're going to be able to see very many various monarchs around. And in Uganda, you will see the major four monarchs of five. So that's Uganda. But all this now come from what was called anciently the Bunyoro-Kitara Empire. Which
The great.
Yes, Bunyoro-Kitara Empire. And so many have the Asante
But that's what I'm
Empire
told.
in West Africa.
The great Bunyoro-Kitara Empire came from the Chwez dynasty, emanating from Basongora.
No, the dynasty is what majorly ruled the empire. But the empire, the Bunyoro-Kitara Empire, was the biggest empire of this small part of the Eastern Africa. As much as you have the Solomonic dynasty up in Abyssinia. Abyssinia was covering even Egypt.
Hey.
Yes, it was a bigger one. So the Egyptian pharaoh or the Egyptian pharaohs only took over from this Abyssinian empire. So you had also you had the Asante Empire in West Africa and the others, and then also in the southern part of Africa, you had the Zulu Empire. So that's one of the famous.
The last time I was with the king of Songora, he told me all those came from the Chwez dynasty.
Well, that's his version, but I want to assemble this topic very well for people to understand and the viewers to understand where we come from. So the empire divided into various kingdoms. We saw the introduction of various, like for example, the Arab traders who came in 1600. These ones came with sultanates. Sultanates were economic enclaves, more of economic enclaves of power that also based on their cultural systems of the Islamic Arabs. So they start to put sultanates, and most of these sultanates, including today Muhammad V, the king of Morocco, who identifies himself as the grandchild of Muhammad, the prophet of Islam. And that is what the basis of his royalty. Well, I'm not sure if Arab scholars will tell us that Muhammad was a member of the royal family of the Arab, because the Quran and all the Hadith seem not to agree with that. The books of Islam, they seem to see him as a spiritual leader of Islam, but never was he into the royal circles. There were different groups, but King Muhammad V, with due respect, he identifies himself as the grandchild of Muhammad. And so the Morocco kingdom, which would say in the early 1600 was a sultanate, he is the ruler of that kingdom to date. And we also see in parts of Somalia there were sultanates, in the parts of Sudan and all the others. So the Berlin Conference put all these kingdoms and sultanates on board to be able to create states. But also, we had confederate structures. We had structures of people who were using a family system in terms of the governance. So, like for example, Nilotics. Nilotics are people who did not have kingdoms in their structures. This kingdom formation was more in people to do with the Bantu and the Hamitic people. But for the purposes of Luo-Nubians or the Nubians, the Luo, and then the Nilotics, there were people who were not using such kind of systems. They did not have governance systems. And for the purposes of the British, Great Britain, wherever it found established governance systems, they formed what they called protectorates. They said, okay, here we come. Yes, here we come.
Uganda was one of them.
Exactly. Here we come. We recognize your administrative structures. They are very wonderful. We actually didn't expect this. Now all what we ask.
You feed into this one of ours.
Yeah, because they had some kind of military might. You know, the gun. The gun is what caused the subduing of these men. Because if you know very well here, when you read Like my grandfather's book, Africa Answers Back, Dr. Kiki Nyabongo.
Yeah, your grandfather wrote a book.
Yes,
What is it?
He's the first African, black African to get a PhD from Oxford in 1940.
Your father?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather?
And it's always celebrated in the Black History Month in October in the United Kingdom.
Kasagama.
But hold on a bit, I'm explaining something, Mr. Speaker. So, he got a PhD from a subject that was introduced by the British or the colonial Europeans to study Africa and the rest of the realms which they were controlling around the world, on how to govern them, on how to subdue them and take them over. So the British introduced the subject of anthropology.
Huh?
Anthropology was nothing other than coming to study
how you'll be governed.
Yes, this Uganda, understand it, its culture, its governance system, its traditions, and then understand how it could be taken over. So that's why he tells you that the people like Captain Frederick Lugard in Uganda, when they come and introduce the gun, the power of the gun, they tell the king, I have a better weapon here, or a chief which you will use to govern your people. For those who do not accept to your rule, this weapon will help you more. And then
subdue them.
Exactly. And then, because they were also a bit fair and humanistic, that's why not every story about colonial story that wants to demonize them is really true. It's not necessarily. So they say, okay, do you have any person you have put under the tribunal justice system and has been sentenced, for example, to death, that yes, bring him. First they started with testing on animals. Then the kings would give these people, test on him. Then they cock the gun and they shoot him and the person dies. They say, wow.
Wonderful weapon.
Wonderful weapon.
This is going to work.
Exactly. So you remember very well, even in the history of a nation and state of Uganda, whereby you had to have a leader who was handcuffed. They tested the handcuffs on him. And then they could not release him until he signed some agreements.
Hey,
yes.
In Uganda, yeah.
It was very serious like that. So to want to know how handcuffs work, then you bring your hands and they handcuff you. Now you can't get out. And they said, no. They said, oh, hold on.
You say this. This happened in Uganda, yeah.
You first put your signature down there. So now we are looking at how.
Are we still on Confederation?
Yes, we're looking at Confederate states, understanding how the political structure, the political governance system set up was in Africa then. So we see that the Nilotics and the majorly the Luos were confederate. They had their own type of chiefs, but who did not have administrative structures, but had more of a social structure and a family structure. You find one man with a village and so many people around that village, and they have circles and elders who sit, and those elders dictate on how matters should go. More than the Hamitic and the Bantu, who had administration and all systems in place. Now, we look at an Africa whereby the Caesarean C-section in the late 1890s is a study that the British researchers came to learn from Bunyoro.
Hey, they came here?
Absolutely. Every young child, or what they call teenage pregnancy in Europe, if there was a teenage pregnancy, and by the way they were there, that girl would die. But in Africa it was done successfully. In Bunyoro. Here.
C-section?
Yes, C-section. It was done, and when they're explaining in this article, you get to wonder. You know, people were using, recently in COVID, that's when people discovered that alcohol, ether, was a sanitizer.
They discovered that during COVID-19, the lockdown.
That it would that ethanol or this what African people, most people call alcohol, would kind of kill or frustrate the COVID virus. And that's why it was used in many sanitizers and so. But here,
so during C-section in Africa, this is what they used to use.
It was
to kill germs.
No, not just only that. It was being used even to control about using the operation to control even the bacteria and all that for health purposes. Yes. Absolutely.
Tetanus.
Yes, and all those diseases. So it's being used. So he quickly studied.
So our ancestors knew, without the white man, that if you use this alcohol, it can kill.
It is now. It was used as a for health purposes in trying to perform the C-section. So, but you also notice that they were using knives. So these knives, in terms of cutting the body, they were made by people who were doing iron smelting. Now, how were these knives made?
I wasn't there.
You know, we are in this great Pan-African debate, but we are using English to elaborate. Tungejifunza Swahili, lakini wenzi wetu wawezi wakatupata kwani tunaongea kwa lugha which they don't understand very well. But
even the speaker himself will not understand.
Exactly. But we are trying to use English so that there can be this kind of understanding. So we had elephants which were being used as types of geotechnical survey machines. Yes, because
so
in the
geotechnical survey machine,
in the old
an elephant,
for example, yes, I'm using that example. That's why in our place you have a place called Kiendoto. So here is what would happen. A small explanation of how the smelting to come up with knives would work. How did it work? So what they used to do is that to understand that there is iron ore, what we call obtali, you have to wait for the full moon and then track where the elephants lodge. Now, elephants, like all animals, at night they want warmth. So during the day, when there is a lot of sunlight, the earth is absorbing heat. So the rocks and the entire earth is absorbing heat. So what happens during at night? This same ground emits the heat. So you can say there is some rate of loss in terms of the efficiency of heat. So in the rate of loss of the efficiency of this heat, you have at around 9, you would say the normal ground has lost heat. But you would expect the deep earth's crust or the structure to have some amount of heat. So in the iron ore, heat would still be emitted to the ground. So why these smelters use it to look for, to try and find and track and find where elephants are, because elephants have a big mass, so they need some considerable warmth. So they would go to where the ground is warm. So that is exactly where the extraction would be done.
So they would use the elephants to locate
where iron ore was. So after locating,
that's why your place is called Kienzozo.
Exactly. So it would be extracted out, and the place is actually there. Mumanabo, that's how they call it. Mumanabo means in the mining trenches or in the mines. Amanabo. So they would dig those particular places. After digging those particular places, they extract the iron ore, then take it through the process of heating. And then they get in the iron, and then they smelt and make knives.
Okay, now,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have given us a good history.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That's why you introduced me, saying I am chairing. I'm chairman at the Africa Royal Heritage Museum. This museum in Fort Possess City, the Kingdom of Toro, it is the only place where you can discover your roots and family. The place where you can using our system, or where you can come and be able to discover your lost family and your lost roots and heritage in Africa. If you are from Africa itself or you are from outside Africa. So we put up a system that helps people to discover. Now, let's go to the second part.
Because they want us to talk about how African countries can federate and confederate. Because you have taken us too much into history, but now we want to come to the possibilities and why you think it is the most important aspect that Africa is missing.
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker. Now, to be able to go on with this, I needed you now. We have understood how we were structurally formed. What was our structural setup? Now we needed to understand how can it be done again. First of all, what was the intention, the major intention of the colonial machine to come up with republic states of people who did not agree, of partitioning people who were the same, because wherever there is a boundary of any republic state, you have in its eastern side of one of that republic the same group of people on the western side of that republican state, and the same applies for the north and the south. So it means those federate states, their social governance system was dismantled.
That's correct.
Dismantled. So, and this is majorly what has disturbed all these nationalist leaders. They came and adopted a Western governance system. Even for some excellent ones, for example, like Uganda, in the case for Uganda, and others, where cultures were recognized and embedded in the constitution. The manner or the study in which they would concurrently move with the Republican governance system has not been fully utilized in these 40 years. It has greatly disturbed.
Why
and
do you
that
think
is
so?
And that is, yes, for a case, our own case. So, and that's why in many other countries, including here, you have very slow development, and issues of transition have been very hard to handle. It is because there is failure to understand how to amalgamate the two systems. The Republican project, formed by the colonial machine, and the ancient traditional structure, which is still subsisting. And that's why Colonel Muammar Gaddafi,
may he rest in peace,
absolutely, in 2008, commissions a special project
called
this very research project. And this is the first project that African professors, led by a group of professors from Zimbabwe, were able to write a paper called Federalism and Confederalism in Africa as a way to unite Africa. This is the seed whereby you saw the African Union adopting traditional leaders, part of the African Union Assembly. This is where the writing of yet another important book, which is called the African Fact Book.
The African Fact Book.
Absolutely. Because we have been having a global fact book, which is the CIA fact book.
CIA
Yes, Central Intelligence Agency.
of America.
Had a fact book on the entire world, but also Africa.
But
Is
it's
that
written by
today,
them.
if you wanted any information, you go online and say the CIA fact book and you type in any country, it will give you a summary of the political economy of that country.
But are they really facts? When they say fact book,
They are facts. But according to
or it is the
Mnangagwa
facts according
and
to them?
the professors, they said, no, we are tired of telling our story. We want to tell our own story.
Our own story.
That's why they.
That's why I'm asking, this one, is it a fact book about Africa? When it is written by CIA?
I don't see the difference because
no,
I don't
there
see,
is.
I don't see. I don't. No,
If Mnangagwa is saying, let us tell our story.
no, me.
Why do you think he's suspecting that other people told about Africa?
Well, I don't. If you compare the CIA fact book and the African fact book led by Zimbabwean professors, you look at the tribes, for example, in Zimbabwe, minerals in Zimbabwe, the leader of Zimbabwe, all that data seems to be the same. But Mnangagwa was more like, let us tell our story. Okay, which is a smart move, which I really appreciate. So, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi commissioned this paper, and we had a team of landmen who said the only way to achieve this is through federation and confederation.
Okay. So
First,
since Gaddafi left,
we have to maintain the republic states. But we also have to adopt the monarch states or the cultural state setup into this system. Now, this takes us to our limitations. What are our current limitations in Africa? Why is this thing not happening ever since 2008? Now, I'm privileged to read one of the biggest books on this continent.
Which one is that?
It is a biography of a man that is a great subject today in the world. That's Benjamin Netanyahu.
Hey, Israel.
In his biography, he writes something that is very important. I may not release details because I also want him to make some good money where people can buy his biography. But in this biography, there is this Jewish Russian scholar. He's a Jew who was in Russia. And then he was in America. But he invented the theory that said, first of all, there was a theory of going back home, the Zionist theory.
The Zionist theory.
But for him, he said, when we go back home, we have to attain military might that is very powerful than the Arab Islamic states until they accept to live with us.
That is Netanyahu.
No. Netanyahu is a very young man. It is about those ancient Jewish scholars. So he says we have to develop military might that is stronger.
That our oppressors will have no choice but to live with us.
Exactly. They will have to accept to live with us.
Because they have no choice.
And
if you refuse,
and today,
they subdue you.
And today it has come true.
Hey.
Yes, Israel has the biggest military might. There's the debate there. And this military might is what caused the normalization you had been seeing Benjamin Netanyahu do. The normalization is out of an acceptance that there is no other option apart from living together. As a family of Abraham, I like to put that. So there was a rejection of people, which includes Hamas that had missions of total annihilation of the Jews and some other republics, specifically Iran, under this leadership. Another leadership might not take on the same words, but for some people, for some states, they've been able to abandon and say, no, I don't think this is achievable. It's a white elephant. They had to abandon it. But you see, what disturbs us for us, number one, the limitation is technology. Do we have the technology that is necessary for this reunification? Hold on, that's one limitation. The second limitation, technology. Technology is very important because it leads into manufacturing. Number two, education. Is our education concentrating on how we can be able to take on this socio-economic,
freeing the African mind?
Exactly, like you love to say, free the African mind.
Yes.
Is our education?
Is our education system
do we have
freeing our African mind, or is actually it is continuing to actually
or subjugate them?
Subjugate.
Exactly. So that is also another key aspect to look at the limitation. The governance structure. This governance structure is a mess. It can't work.
This governance structure
this governance system cannot work. It cannot work.
But this is the system we adopted from Europe.
Yes, it is one of the biggest hoax. Yes, it's a scam.
This governance system
the governance
is a hoax.
system in these republics these governance systems are a hoax. If we want to understand the governance system, there are two developed countries that look like Africa. Typically.
Which ones?
United Kingdom and Sweden.
UK.
And Sweden, yes. United Kingdom and Sweden, if we want perfect studies, would be to look at their governance systems.
UK, it is a monarch.
Yes. For the federal states.
And even UAE.
For the
UAE, Dubai.
Yes. Exactly.
Dubai.
Even UAE. Yes, is another good example. Yes. So for the federal states, that governance system will help us more. But also, for the Confederate States, the American system is also not a bad system.
But the American system is what is here, and it is you have just said
not
it is
necessarily. Bad. Here is a mix-up of so many things.
This is the American. Even the voting is managed by America.
It is the American system infused into something that they can't completely form into one. So that is another thing. So the other thing is the security machine.
Security.
The security machine. Now this case, Africa has to borrow a leaf from China.
How has China done it?
The security machine, you see, the concept of war seems never to change if you read most of the books and you study it. The fact is that it doesn't matter how many drones are going to be manufactured, how many drones are going to be manufactured, how many planes, Air Force, and so on, but these will need human beings to operate them. Whether these human beings are going to operate them using AI, artificial intelligence, the fact is they have to have human beings. Yes, technology and AI are trying to reduce numbers in an aspect of trying to substitute human manpower with machines. But it has remained very important that you cannot underestimate numbers. Now, here's an example. The entire 54 states, what is the capacity in numbers of their security machine? So, the capacity of their security machine is what explains to us that this security machine is very important into this project. So if 54 states, like we say, on average in every state there is 100,000, 100 times 54 is what?
100 times 54.
Yes, 100,000 times 54. So you can see the numbers of the machine. The other thing is the intra-trade in Africa.
That will be 5.4 million.
Absolutely. Security machine.
Hey!
I'm just giving a small number.
Hey.
So you cannot contest somebody who has got 5.4 million.
Machinery.
Yes.
Protect his interests.
Absolutely.
In his own territory.
Yes, you cannot contest him.
So
yes,
in conclusion, because you are winding up.
The small states are a limitation. Another limitation, another great one, intra-trade, the level of intra-trade. Africa trades more with outside than it trades with itself
within.
And that's why at AU we have got the ACFTA project. So the higher we fast track intra-trade,
yes,
is the more stronger we become.
Yes.
Because
when you are trading within yourselves, you are consolidating your own strength and money.
You're even empowering yourself.
Yes, because money is simply exchanging hands between ourselves. When you are selling, when you are trading outside, you are sending money to China, you are sending money to America, you are sending money. Then tomorrow you come and complain that we are poor. But you have taken money out.
You take money out. You don't consolidate it. So the other aspect, biggest aspect now, comes to the integration or the migration laws. Look at how our migration concentrates at controlling other Africans to come into these Republican states.
A Ghanaian wants to come to Uganda and settle. The way they control them.
But then, pre-Berlin, you would move.
Yes.
And move
from Ghana and come to Uganda.
Absolutely, without having anybody answer. You reach somewhere, you introduce before they welcome you, they dance.
Actually, today in Africa, an American, a white man, can easily get access to stay here in peace than a Rwandese coming to Uganda and stay.
If you have what is taking the minds of the leaders, mostly of not doing this. We have some few leaders who are dedicated to this, but we have others. For those who have failed to do it, they have been lured by the desires, their personal desires. For example, the desire for money, building empires, separate empires, the fear. So they have concentrated at the money empires and how to create them and how to have accumulate wealth and all gold is there. And then the other now, they have also concentrated at domination and even sometimes domination to do with the passing on power to either their children or their comrades. But comrades...
Monarchism.
Comrades, they are political monarchies.
Of course.
But comrades who have an agenda that is more of their group to remain...
More of the same.
Exactly. To remain in the domination for the interest
of that group.
First, what they don't say is that they are manning these projects for themselves. Now, second will be the country.
Thank you very much.
So,
as we went up,
our success is geared on the strengths of our culture and the strengths of our faith. So, this is why this project remains as a very hopeful project. Because all Africans, leaders, citizens, natives, and all others, is that they have a high degree for their sense of culture, and they have a high degree for their sense of faith, wherever they belong. That withstanding, reminding that they have to disband religions, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and all these. Because for the Christians, communion and fellowship with God is through His Word. It is not going through the established religions.
No, let me put it more clearly, Comrade Kasagama. The Indians, they have Hinduism as their religion, isn't it? The Americans, huh?
Established Pentecostalism.
And
the Pentecostalism, the Pentecostal movement.
Yes. The Jews established...
More America is also a Catholic nation.
Yes, Catholic. The Jews established Judaism. And these ones, the Romans, the Catholics.
Europe is covered with two.
Yes.
Yes, which is the
Catholics and
Protestants.
So it means these are not our religions, Mr. Kasagama.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying those are systems.
Now,
those are systems.
Let me finish my question. Okay, you have called them systems, not religions. Oh, okay. You want to call them systems?
Yeah, okay, they are religions, religious systems.
Okay, religious systems. The Islam comes from Arab, Middle East. So here comes my question. We have Africans who are Muslims. We have Africans who are Catholics. We have Africans who are Anglican. We have Africans who are Hindu. I have now even seen Makerere University has started teaching Confucius.
It's a doctrine from China.
That is China.
Yes.
So Chinese are teaching you Africans their religion. Let me ask you, what is our religion? And why are we abandoning our religion if we do have? Mr. Kasama, what is our religion? What is African religion? Before we go into...
First of all, religion is an opium for the poor.
Hey.
It is not even necessary.
But you are Protestant.
What is necessary? What is necessary is faith.
Faith. Okokiriza.
And spirituality.
Yes.
That's very important. And I have told you that faith and spirituality don't require that. They can be done as it was in Africa anciently. Every person did it themselves. They don't need some kind of structural control. But our structural control in Africa of that faith was embedded in the governance system.
Our ancient governance system.
So, for example, these kings were not just leaders, they were also spiritual leaders. They were mediums. That's where they are given titles and names that are symbolically names of worship. So the moment we abandoned them, it means we abandoned our religious system. So
what was our religious system? You are not answering that one.
For the choice king,
you are not answering that one.
For the choice king, he was not just a king, he was also a demigod.
A demigod. Choice dynasty.
Yes, he was not just a leader, he was also a demigod. So it was not just accepting to his commands, but it was also accepting to his spiritual guidance. Like Buddha is in China and the rest. Yes, he's a spiritual leader. And so even in India. So
I've even seen here the Aga Khan. There are some people believing in Aga Khan as a spiritual leader.
So when you look at what we need spirituality. We do not need religions. We need language, and we need to tackle these issues to make sure. But I invite the viewers and everyone to the Africa Royal Heritage Museum
in Itoro.
Absolutely.
So that you teach us our religion.
And so I also invite them to have it so that they can discover to the system, to be able to discover their roots and family and lineage.
Thank you very much.
Then we can be able to achieve the dream and the objective of federation and confederation as a mechanism to the reunification of
Africa.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Mr. Comrade Arali Kasagama. Arali Kasagama is actually a royal member of the Toro ruling clan, the Babito clan. And so he's a royal member. When he's here, I have to kneel. But because now here I'm the speaker, I sit with him. Alright, Kasagama, thank you so much for accepting my invitation here. Thank you. On 31st of August is the Pan-African Pyramid Global Award, the 7th edition. It will be at Fairway Hotel. Please kindly book your dinner card. The dinner card is 200,000, 400,000, 500,000, 1 million, a table 3 million. Come and support Pan-Africanism. I have told you, I have shown you, Chinese have their religion. It's called what? Chinese.
The Confucius.
Confucius. Buddhism comes from China also.
Buddhism, yeah.
Then Indians have Hinduism. The Western world has Christianity and the Anglican.
And it's sects.
And it's sects where you find the Morocco and so on. What is the African religion? African religion is Ubuntu.
It is the Messianic mission.
Ubuntuism,
Yeah.
not the Messianic. Ubuntuism.
It is the
Ubuntu
yeah.
is our religion. But how many Africans really practice Ubuntuism? Ubuntu. That's our religion. Thank you so much. See you.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.